Hi, team. Welcome to the Escape Podcast for Star Wars The Old Republic. Coming up, we bring on a guest and talk about how we play SWTOR with our kids. But first, a couple bits of news and a shout-out to our guild, Alea Iacta Est, on Jedi Covenant. Our broadcast astromech today is EPC 147. Hey, 147, did you play games with your dad? Oh, yeah? Your dad was a trash compactor, so not much game time? Aw, you must have been crushed. With me, as always, is Seema. Hi, Seema. How's it going?
It's going well. I can't believe that it's Tuesday already, but maybe that's because it's Sunday, and it's not only Sunday, it's Sunday in the future. So we're doing a stealth recording here on a Sunday because Max will be out of town, not this week, but next week. So, we're proactive like that. Of course, now when you hear this, it'll be in the past, but something. Anyway, as part of this special episode, we have a guest. He's a guildie of ours, and we've asked him to come and talk about the pitfalls and rewards of playing an MMO with your kids. Hey, Thon, welcome, and how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for the invite, and thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to the podcast. Max, how are you doing?
I am doing well. Yes, it is a little bit of a challenge doing this podcast early, but we wanted to make sure that it would show up on the normal time. So this is podcast episode 147, but Tuesday we're going to do 146. So
it makes sense to me.
It's a whole wibbly wobbly timey wimey thing. Regardless, we will try to do a little bit of future news.
Now an Imperial News Network report.
So at the time you hear this, there will be a bounty contract week. They are continuing to try to do the events, one of each of the major events each month, which is great. So we had the Rackles recently. We'll have Bounty Contract Week coming back, and I would expect the Gree before too long as well. So that's pretty cool to have those continuing to iterate.
And in a couple of weeks, June 28th, look for Chapter 15.
And a little bit of a placeholder in case something does come up
in case news happens.
In guild and community news, we're continuing to do our conquest in Alea Iacta Est weekly basis. Arv is continuing to do a great job of picking planets for us to go and invade. We've got our multiple ops teams running on Mondays and Wednesdays and Thursdays and Fridays, and our Tuesday night mandatory fun nights continue to rock and roll. So that is awesome. Out there also in community news, I still want to continue to highlight coming up in July. On July 2nd on the Red Eclipse server is Snave's PvP Ultimate Red Star Championship PvP 1v1 community event. That tournament is really cool to watch if you aren't going to participate, but it's also looks pretty cool to participate in as well. Some high-end PvP going on in there. There's always some PvP going on in Alea Iacta Est as well. I haven't been doing a lot lately, but I could start more of that up if there are guildies that want to do it. How would somebody if they wanted to be a guildie though, Simo? Is there any possible way to make something like that happen?
Well, if you're not already in AIE, if you want to know anything about our guild, we're always looking for new members. We're on Jedi Covenant. We're part of a larger guild community, Alea Iacta Est, which is a very large, family-friendly, multi-gaming group. We have a solid guild here on SWTOR on both the Imperial side and the Republic sides. And if you want to know more about our thing, you can find info about us at aie-guild.org, or you can catch officers in-game here on Jedi Covenant by joining the AIE LFO channel, and evenings are best for that.
Excellent. And with that, let's I think I was able to dig up some information in some way on playing with our kids.
Many Bothans died to bring us this information.
What better way to get information on playing with your kids than to kill some Bothans?
Kill a few Bothans.
So Seema, I've played with my kids, and Thon we brought on because he's certainly played with his kids. What I wanted to then do is Seema, you have not played with your kids, have you?
Uh-uh.
You
No.
just refuse
So I
to
don't have
allow
any
your kids
experiences, so
to play.
I'll be listening to your guys and your
Do
wisdom.
you allow Max the cat to play? Your two cats to play?
He would like to play, actually. He's actually watching the screen right now.
So that reminds me of the
But yeah,
Pele's of Beyond the Stars podcast when we were doing the Galactic Gamers Coalition podcast at the time of this recording, it'll be about 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. His cats kept trying to jump on his keyboard the whole time he was podcasting. You could
well,
see
my
it in the
other
video.
cat used to do that, but this cat will sit on the desk and watch the screen with it. He has his head cocked to one side, like he's actually, taking it all in.
Very good.
He's like, "Are you sure that's you're using the right rotation there, Seema?"
So
But anyway,
with Thon and I being having stories, little bits of stories on how we've done stuff with our kids, I figured Seema, maybe you can lead us off and sort of interview us and act as a
Yeah.
proxy for the audience to figure out what
so
we're
I'll
gonna do.
start by asking Thon, how did you get started playing with your kids or playing SWTOR in general? How did that come to be?
Yeah, so I'm a longtime gamer, although this is my first MMO. I played probably every Star Wars game that had come out prior to this, but had never really played an MMO. And then I guess, so probably starting 3 years ago after SWTOR went free to play, my kids were still young enough that for Christmas, this is probably Christmas of 2013, I had the bright idea that I was going to, quote, get them this game for Christmas, which was great because it didn't cost me a penny. So that was kind of nice. So I loaded it on my computer and started playing myself just to teach myself how to play so that come Christmas morning, I could kind of introduce them to it. And then sort of one thing led to another. In fact, probably the second day that I was shadow playing up at my office at home, and the kids had no idea I even had this. I ran into a guy. I was totally lost. He invited me to a guild, and I came out to my wife, and I'm like, "I'm in a guild." She's like, "Okay, this is." I'm really not sure what to make of all this. So come Christmas, the kids, quote, unwrapped their present, which I'd mocked up a box, and so we started playing together, and it was just it was a blast. I mean, they love Star Wars. Once they were age appropriate to watch Star Wars, I began what my 19-year-old daughter now calls the indoctrination. So they'd seen every Star Wars movie. They can quote the movies, the whole 9 yards. So they love Star Wars almost as much as I do. So that's kind of how we got started. And then one thing led to another, and here we are, and we're part of AIE now.
Well, that's awesome. That is awesome. That's a real sort of dad story of, the kids. My kids are really gonna love this. You know what I need to get my son for Christmas? I need to get him a giant box of Legos. He's only 6 months old. He can't play with those yet. No. He really needs a quadcopter.
In all honesty, that actually is that actually is how this started out. But yeah, pretty quickly I'm like, killing flesh eaters, and just the world of SWTOR was just so vast. I'd never seen anything like it. I'd played KOTOR, I'd played Dark Forces, but I'd never played an MMO, and I'm like, my wife is coming upstairs. And she's trying to talk to me. And I'm like, look, you see that guy? That's a person. That's a person running across the street right there. And I can go talk to them if I want. Like, this is crazy. And my wife's not a gamer, so she just kind of
shook her head
with a mixture of pity and somewhat compassion, shakes her head and walks back out of the room.
Yes.
She's looking at the screen going, even I can tell that's not a person.
Yeah, I can tell it's not a person. I'm like, no, really, that's a person.
It's massively multiplayer.
Exactly.
So I got started playing SWTOR. I've been playing MMOs for years, a lot as part of LA Act Est. Going way back, I played Ultima Online in beta, and I played WoW, and so I've played games for a long time, on and off a little bit as my kids were quite young. I played a little bit of games with them here and there. So as Star Wars: The Old Republic was in beta and was under development, we were pretty excited about it in AIE, and I was going to play it regardless. even though I was in the beta and I was playing it a little bit, and at that time, my son was certainly old enough to play. He is 19, almost 20 now, so you can sort of do the math and back that up. He was in high school at the time. However, my daughters were a little bit younger, so my youngest daughter is now only 13. They always watched whatever I happened to be doing and whatever games I happened to be playing, and they got a kick out of it. They had seen at least some of the Star Wars movies, and now they also have been indoctrinated and seen all of them. And because it was early in the game, and I was going through especially a lot of the character creation, and it's Jedi and Sith, they were interested, and they wanted to jump into it too. So that's how I started to take some time to to pull them into it as well.
So when they, how did you get them started? And did you play together, like you have characters that play together, or did you sit beside them and supervise, or how did that all go?
So that's
So we.
Go ahead.
Go ahead,
Go ahead,
Max.
Thon. No,
Matt,
that's a good question.
So for us, so at that point we were homeschooling both the boys. My daughter's not a gamer, but the boys are. So each of the boys had their own laptop for school, and so we would just sort of retreat up to the office upstairs. The boys are on their laptop, I'm on the desktop. So I kind of helped each of them create their own character and just kind of walk through the process. And then all three of us, since we didn't have voice comms yet, we were just playing in the same room, and so we started running just the story content. I mean, I think we were running the story content on Tython together because, of course, everybody made a Jedi out of the gate. I think we all had Sentinels. Why? What else would you possibly have? And that was, I remember probably the first day we were all playing together, we're still just figuring out the basic game mechanics. And I'm working with my younger son, Mal, who's in the guild, as you guys know, and the older boy, Balakin. I just hear him go. He just starts screaming. He's like, ah! And I look on the screen, and he had pulled some mob of those cats that are on Tython, and so we just see him run across the screen, and then a mob of cats run across the screen. And again, just the level of interactivity that this game had was nothing I'd ever seen before. So we jumped in action, and we rescued him and saved him from the cats. And to this day, that's one of our little favorite memories, just because we didn't see that coming. And I think some random guy helped us out, which again was like, oh, that's a real person who actually just saved us. So yeah.
And how about you, Max?
Yeah, so I did with my son. It quickly got to he was old enough that he ended up sort of going off on his own, and we'll talk about that a little bit as sort of next. But especially with my daughters and my older daughter, who is now 17, I played with her. So this was sort of like dad-daughter fun time, and it was a lot of the leveling experience. And the leveling experience, I think, is a really good way to, that's good content in SWTOR to sort of team up. The most fun part of it that I've found, and anyone who's going to set aside time to get started with your kids and play, is to make sure you set aside a ton of time for character creation.
Oh, right.
Because I remember back in beta, I mean, it's been 3 years, so she was like 9 at the time in beta, my youngest daughter, and all she wanted to do was create one after another Type 4 body type male Sith. And I was like, but wait, look at this, this sorcerer, this sorcerer girl, doesn't she look really cool? She's like, nah. I want these fat guy Sith. They're awesome. So she
that's all Mal plays to this day.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. It sounds like Mouse.
That is hilarious. So certainly set aside a bunch of time for character creation. Let them go crazy. That's one of the most fun parts of the game if you've not done an MMO or created a character like that before. I also had to work with both of them, especially my older daughter, and my son. My son, we spent a bunch of time coming up with names. So my name is Max in game. That's my gamer name across all games, and I use it to name all of my characters, so they're all named sort of max something, even in all different games. It helps when I'm in a guild because everybody knows who all my characters are. So I went through that and I explained that to Nick, and we came up with a name for him that was, not too goofy, not too crazy, not, Mr. Poopy Pants, which will not serve them well in the future, which you need to watch out for. But we came up with the name of Zen, and that was a name that he could then, use in lots of different ways. It was small enough that it's a good root of other character names, and so a lot of his characters are named based on Zen. And then he's gone off and done a couple other naming things, which are pretty cool too. He's been studying in Spain, and even so in the last 2 years he's been studying a lot of Spanish. A lot of his character names are now Spanish words, so that's cool.
Cool.
But yeah, so the naming, set aside time for the naming and the character creation, because that's one of the biggest pieces of it.
Yeah, no, my story is pretty similar. So when I first started playing, I mean, I guess I'd seen that you could have like multiple characters, but I mean, I was so used to sort of the KOTOR model, although I guess we've sort of gotten back to that a little bit, but just, I was like, I don't think I could play more than one story. Like, this is my guy, that's a story. And pretty quickly, Mal, after sort of having his original tune get to probably 55, he's like, Dad, you need another tune. You got to have a trooper. Because he already had a trooper. I'm like, well, really? So I created a trooper, and then next he's like, Dad, you need a, whatever the next thing was, a smuggler. So, and my naming convention is similar. Every tune that I have is named Thon something, and so Mal would come upstairs like, Dad, I got one. Thon Solo. So I have a Thon Solo. I have a Thandalf, which is on the pub side. So I have an Ahsoka Thano, who is a Togruta.
That other one is your Jedi wizard, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes, he's my Jedi wizard, full white hair, the white beard, and he's actually caused me to now get into it. I'm like, you know what I need? I need a Thando Calrissian. So I finally just this week bought the remaining gear to perfect the look. So you will be seeing a Thando Calrissian in the guild. I have an Iron Than on the imp side, but in fact I didn't even have an imp character and never planned to, except for now, and this may bleed over into the once they start branching out and doing their own thing. But so he decided he wanted a Sith character, and I was like, well, I guess I need an imp character too, just so I can monitor what's going on over there and play with him over there, because all my tunes at that point had been pub tunes. So that's how I ended up even forming any imp tunes, was because he was pretty much Mal after we started the game, pretty quickly. He took me further in the game than I'd ever even contemplated going. I mean, I didn't ever plan on doing PvP. He's the one who figured out how it worked and started running PvP with me. We were on Terrace, I guess. This is pretty early on, and he was like, Dad, there's this world boss thing. Let's put an op together and kill it. I'm like, what's an op? So the next thing I see, he's inviting me to a group, and then there's 3, and then there's 4, and then there's 8, and I'm like, how are you doing this? I don't even know. He's like, I'm the ops leader, and he's like barking out commands. I mean, it was,
right on.
I'm like, okay, I'm along for the ride. So yeah, it's definitely been a bit of a game of catch up. Once introduced, he's really taken to it.
Yeah, that's excellent. So does he go off and play by himself?
He does now, yeah. We do still play together a fair amount, but he'll so he and his brother and I would, in the early days, played together, the 3 of us, and then they get along and they're very close, but they just got very different play styles, and so one is super methodical and wants to do every single thing before moving on to the next thing, and Mal, as you might guess,
and then there's Mal.
And then there's Mal, who's, hey, look over there, let's get to that. Mal had me the squirrel. We were probably level, which is actually another one of my favorite memories. We were probably in the mid-20s level with our very first tunes, and he'd gotten a ship, and I'm probably in between the 2 of them. I'm not, a total serial processor, but so Mal was like, Dad, we can go to Hoth. And I'm like, okay, that sounds cool. Let's go to Hoth. We're probably not supposed to, but let's do it. And so he's got me exploring Hoth, and this is way before level sync, right? And so, I mean, we were woefully, woefully unprepared for anything that was on Hoth. So it was this big game of, oh wait, look, there's an ice cat, which then just shredded us immediately. so, so then it's like, oh look, there's an Wampa. And we just spent a ton of time not really doing anything because you couldn't engage a thing, but just exploring Hoth because you could.
That's so funny because when I first started playing, that was one of my goals was to get to Hoth, and I remember laboriously leveling up through Terrace and just telling myself, "But soon you'll be able to get to Hoth."
Yeah, no, Mal
You
didn't
guys
foresee
just
that
went.
period. No, he's like, hey, the ship goes there. Let's do it. Like, I don't think we're supposed to be here. No, it'll be fine, Dad. Okay, all right. I had a similar thing, and actually, this is with my older boy Balakan. So he'd finally cleared Oricon, and so he's like, Dad, come check this big door out. So we were at the opening for Dread Fortress, and we'd never run any ops at that point at all because we were all still preferred at that point. And so I was like, yeah, I think you need like some kind of special pass. We looked into it. So actually both bought ops passes, having no idea that you could not two-man an op. And so we roll into Dread Fortress. And of course there's those things right at the beginning. And I'm like, I'm trying to kind of checking the hit points. I'm like, this is a little daunting. Let's skip these guys. So we used the little cloak feature that Sentinels had and kind of ran past them. Well, that of course, yeah, because that'll help. Then you get to Nephra, and I'm like, nah, I think this might be a bit beyond us. So, the older one still jokes about, Dad, remember that time because we spent like an hour creeping around inside Dread Fortress. Just the two of us, just checking it out.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So then we realized, okay, so there's something else. There's yet something else. There's ops we have to figure out.
Yeah, that is something I hadn't really thought about. Is sort of not only your parental role, but the influence of the sort of wonder and everything of your kids being there too, and looking at it a completely different way.
Yeah, really. I mean, again, I would never have. I would have seen that and thought, that's something really complicated that hardcore gamers do. I'll move on. And they're like, no, we've got to get in through this door. And then I'm like, yeah, we do have to get in through that door. What's in there?
That is funny. The different play styles. My son being older and he's played games before, and he and I, it was great. He actually did a ton of PvP, and he would. We'd have deep conversations about theory crafting, min-max of gear, and all that kind of stuff, and that was really cool. He taught me things about PvP of the different classes, of how the different healer types performed, and that kind of thing. So that was what sort of that real gamer experience. In fact, later on, it was really awesome when he was able to be part of our ops team. And he was one of the top TPS on the ops team. He was quite.
Oh, he was top everything. Yeah,
that's awesome.
But my daughter, she was hilarious. So I don't even know. We just did the leveling. In fact, I don't think we ever got past about level 45. We were both playing female Sorks, and I still have them. And I bet I could convince her to play every once in a while. But she'd always go off on these tangents of things that she just thought were hilarious. Like, she always insisted on carrying around a stack of Rhodian mayo sandwiches. And and anytime I'd give her, like, oh, here, you need to take this stim, it'll help us when we're doing this flashpoint. She'd be like, okay, hold on. And she'd always trade me a Rhodian mayo sandwich. And I'd have to take it. And she loved Chemval. She thought Chemval was the most awesome thing. So she kept like making Chemval say different things, and then she'd like then we'd be in the house later and walking down the hall, and she'd say something to me in Chemval's voice. She had a couple things.
Did she call you Little Sith?
And, I don't know. She used what would she say? There's something he says that sounds like "Ako tunija akatenar," and she used to say that all the time. And so it's just like she really didn't care. She didn't care much about progression. She just looked for hilarious things to do and goof off and she'd like goof around with the NPCs like, oh, I totally got to talk to this dude. Hold on. So it would crack me up constantly. So it was like hardcore gaming with my son, which was awesome, and then just this goofing off and having just complete ridiculous fun, which was awesome with my daughter.
Yeah, because in that case, if you were by yourself, you would have been just, what quest is next and how far to the next level, and yeah.
Yeah, I really had to sort of relax that. Yeah, because it would have been like, oh no, we're, we gotta go faster. We gotta, we gotta level up, and it's like, yeah, that wasn't really the point at all. Which was awesome to realize then and really have fun with.
Yeah, it's sort of like being a baseball or soccer or whatever.
You're a little hard to hear, Thon. You're.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
better.
Better? Yeah, yeah.
That's
it's
better.
Sort of like being a sports dad in a way, where it's like, if we're in the middle of an op or flashpoint, and then Mal in particular decides to just go do something random, not to get like irritated. No, get back here. We have to.
You must play now.
Let's play now. This is supposed to be fun. We're going to Wally World after this. Doggone it.
Yeah.
So I definitely had to kind of relax some of that because Mal will pull something random, pretty much guaranteed.
Yep, I've seen that, and it is awesome. He likes to flag up. He likes to flag up for PvP. It seems
he does like to flag for PvP, which isn't quite as entertaining as it used to be now that they've got the instance.
Yeah.
Right.
Set up the
Now
way
that you can't really do it right. You can go by yourself and then flag up. It's
Right.
just not the same.
Yeah, but no, Mal would frequently, we'd be exploring someplace and he'd see somebody who's like, I'm gonna go get those guys. I'm like, no, seriously, dude, let's just. He's like, I'm on him. I've been dragged into more than one fist fight with Mal.
So speaking of that, or not PvP, but the fact that there's other, players out there, what were your considerations when you went looking for interacting in groups and stuff? Like, did you do flashpoints? And I know you do operations with us now, but I mean, how did you go from just kids and dad playing together to other people involved too?
Yeah,
Because,
so,
it is an MMO.
Yep. Yeah. So for me, with Mal, Balakan really did not. He's much more of a single player guy. Didn't particularly care to do any multiplayer content.
Gotcha.
Mal is super social, and so that's just where he lives. So he was the one who's like, Dad, we can play with these other folks and do a flashpoint and do an op, and that was cool. The first guild that we were in was the guy I happened to meet, the second day of playing the game, who was a guy my age, and he had a son who played with him, so that was how we joined that guild to start. Although eventually Mal actually got kicked out of that guild. The GM actually booted him from
I
the
didn't
guild.
know that.
So it had been a long time coming probably, but so we were in the middle of a flashpoint, and this particular GM, she did not have any kids, did not have a whole lot of tolerance for kids, although my friend in the guild did. And so I think the final straw was one night we were running a flashpoint, and she was very, very focused on not pulling aggro if you didn't need to pull aggro, and both Mal and I, me unintentionally and Mal probably willfully, are just aggro magnets. So we'd pulled a bunch of stuff. She got mad, and and Mal's chatty, as you guys have seen, and so she's like, the GM goes, it boggles my mind that you guys can't avoid these mobs. And so I'm like desperately trying to whisper it to Mal, like, dude, like, we gotta chill. She's really mad. We gotta chill. And Mal goes back to her in chat, and he's like, we play that game called Boggle. You guys know Boggle? It's like a game, right? And I can't remember what her response was, but she was not thrilled with the response, and he just kept at it. He's like, it's kind of like Scrabble, except bogglier. and she kicked him. she, she booted him right on the spot. I'm like,
Really?
yeah, okay, I think this is done. We need to find someplace else. So that was shortly before Max. I probably reached out to you in game because I'd been listening to the podcast and heard you guys talk about it's a family friendly environment, which covers a couple of issues. There's people are conducting themselves appropriately around the kids, which unfortunately in the second guild actually, so we got kicked from that guild, joined another guild that my friend had also started, and that was fine. But then we had some adults join the guild, and they just I mean, look, I'm no prude, but they just weren't family friendly, and it wasn't something that I was excited about. It was just very difficult to play group play in that environment because I was like, you got to turn off, telling Mal, hey, you can play with us, but you're going to have to turn off chat because I have no idea when somebody's going to drop, an F-bomb or whatever in the middle of chat. And again, I'm an adult, I'm no prude, but having my 12-year-old, play with that's just a different ball game. So,
And that's your job in that situation. You are the adult.
right, exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. When I was, especially with my younger daughters, I had them playing, I think it was WoW at the time, just trying some things out, playing, and I told them specifically, this is what chat is, and it's AIE chat, and that's perfectly fine, but don't talk. Don't type anything in. Just don't talk. That's going to be simpler at this point. You guys don't need to be interacting yet. You don't know any of these people. That's just going to keep it simple. We certainly are family friendly in every sense of the word in AIE, and that's been a big help for a lot of parents in AIE that play with their kids, and that's part of the reason. We've got parents that play with their kids. We've got younger members that are just members on their own. So for forever, since the founding of LIA Acta Est, 8 or 9 years ago, that's been a core tenet and just made it really easy. It might feel a little weird to people that come from other guilds because we have sort of a really, no swearing policy for the most part in chat, and especially in other games.
And for some
where
people, that is constricting, and
Yeah.
that's fine.
and they
But
chafe, and
then we may not
we've
be
had
the
people
guild for
quit WoW, and it's not been a problem at all in SWTOR. I don't know why people just
No, it
pretty
hasn't
chill.
been. No.
But we've had people get kicked from the WoW guild because there's hundreds of players in the WoW guild, or a couple thousand characters. So people getting kicked for that, and people that just quit because that policy just chafed a little bit too much. However, for the most part, even out of a couple thousand characters there, and we've got 1,000 characters across the two guilds in SWTOR, it really works well, and people get that that's what this is. And if that's not the kind of guild you're looking for, that's fine. But it makes it really easy to play with anybody. Anybody can come play and have a good time, and we don't have to worry when we bring our kids on, which is really cool.
Yeah. No, when I was looking to move on after guild number 2, I think I ran Mandatory Fun Night with you guys, and Bolto was on. And Bolto was, he may be 13 now. I think he said his birthday's coming up, but he was clearly a younger person.
Yep.
And he fit right in, and nobody said anything that was at all inappropriate for frankly, I'm probably the one who did say something because I tend to be self-critical, and so I think I screwed something up right after Bolto had said he was going to do something, and I would go, "You idiot!" I'm like, "Oh wait, no, not you, Bolto. I wasn't talking to you." But,
Yeah.
I meant the cat.
you moron.
I meant me.
But yeah, so that experience, I was like, well, they say they're family friendly, and that seems to be the case. So here we are.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of young players, and that one in particular is a full-time player. He actually is on one, if not two, of the ops nights. He plays with his dad. His dad's has been around in the guild for quite a while, and he's become a tank for one of the ops. He's certainly been picking it up and learning it as he goes, but he's getting pretty good. So that's been fun, and everybody has been very cool about helped him out and given him the space to do what he needs to do to learn how to be a tank and be part of a guild too. So I've been pretty impressed of our guild treating him and doing everything sort of the right way.
And they've been doing it a little bit different again, whereas Bolto and his dad, they share an account, so they don't have players in the game at the same time, but his dad will be in the room with them.
Yeah, so Thun, you have a separate account for each? You have 3?
We do, yep. So we originally set up separate accounts because the original idea was that we could all 3 play simultaneously, in game. Because the boys had played other games together. I can't remember which ones they were, but whatever it was, it often led to conflict because in whatever game that was, there was no prohibition on attacking each other, and so pretty quickly, whatever game that was, it would degenerate into, usually because Mal got bored and would just turn around and fire on Bullock. But this game, I liked the fact that he would actually have to initiate, unless they both self-flagged, he'd have to initiate a request to duel. So yeah, each boy had their own account, so the 3 of us could play simultaneously, in game, running around, in this gigantic virtual world. It was just awesome.
Yeah, I've had an account. Nick's had his own account for a while now. Subscribed, had a preferred account for my daughter when we were leveling together. I think I subscribed it for a month here or there just to turn on some of the perks. But yeah, getting them their own account, and used to put her laptop at my desk next to me when she and I were leveling together and hang out physically together as well as playing online, and then and that was really cool and fun too.
So do you guys do anything like make sure they turn off trade or even worry about that kind of stuff?
How about you, Thon?
Not at this stage. I mean, they sort of know what the rules are, and in the early days we were playing together, so if somebody were harassing them or bugging them, I was aware of it pretty quickly. But so at this point, they're pretty free to do what they want.
Well, I wasn't thinking so much of harassment as just that sometimes the level of kid friendliness is not there in trade.
Like Gen Chat, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes. I have encouraged them to turn off Gen Chat. Frankly, sometimes I turn off Gen Chat because it's just it's not all that edifying usually. And then sometimes I'll spam troll Gen Chat myself just because I'm bored. But yeah, in the early.
During that time, you make sure they're not listening.
Yeah, that'll definitely make sure. Well, it's not off color; it's just annoying, which actually they think is hilarious.
Chuck Norris jokes
yeah,
in Gen Chat.
Yeah, I've initiated more than my fair share of Jawa contests.
And that makes people so angry.
It
It's
does,
hilarious.
exactly. If I get irritated, I can start trolling. Like back, it hasn't happened in a while, but in Flashpoints we were playing and some other player just was assuming we didn't know what we were doing. He'd just been a real jerk the whole game, and so Mal said, "Dad, troll him." So I started just acting completely ridiculous, like I'd never been there before. But Gen Chat, I typically had them turn that off when they were younger.
Yeah. I didn't too much, but it certainly was a concern. And that was a concern. Just I just sort of kept an eye on it, and if things were getting too out of hand, then I could always close it as we're sort of sitting there. So I was always sort of watching over the shoulder of my youngest kids when they were playing. But I was more concerned with them getting into a conversation with somebody and them not knowing how to handle an actual 1v1 conversation.
Exactly.
So I told them if somebody tries to talk to you, either come ask me or just don't talk to them. You're just doing your own thing anyway, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Because that's, I think, where you can get into more problems.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me that was much. Again, my older boy, he's more of a solo guy, so if somebody tried to chat with him, he'd probably just ignore them and move on. Mal would initiate chat with In fact, he was one of the recruiters in our previous guild. And just because he thinks the best of everybody, and he thinks, oh, this person would be awesome, we should have them in the guild. And so my litmus test became he and I had to run a flashpoint with that person together, just so I could see, how did they conduct themselves during the mission? Were they jerks? Were they nice? Were they not nice? Were they cooperative? And that was sort of the litmus test. Mal, I haven't thought about this. Mal actually, right after he got booted from the first guild, he actually created his own guild, which is shockingly still around, called Disco Ewoks. so from time to time, I will still see somebody who is in Disco Ewoks, and he's like, no one will ever know I actually started the guild. Because we made him,
we know.
and now we know. But he had to. I think the next school year started, and he came upstairs. He was very adult about it. He just was very kind of calm and just sort of contemplative. He's like, Dad, I just don't have time to keep up with Disco Ewoks. I think I need to let it go. Like that's a good call. So he handed the reins over to somebody else.
Very mature.
And
yeah.
And then actually went to school. But yeah, so Disco Ewoks are still out there somewhere.
I just don't have time
Now
for
I'm
Disco
gonna look for them.
Ewoks. Who does, son? Who does?
Exactly.
But so speaking of the school year and school year starting and ending and all that stuff, now it's, do you set like limits on playtime during the school year or during the week or during the week? I mean, how do you deal with like the amount of time your kids play?
Yeah, that, as my wife will attest, that is a massive challenge. I'm probably perceived as not being that helpful because I'll certainly come home after a long day at the office and be like, "Hey, good to see everybody. Okay, I'm gonna go game. This is my man cave time. I'm gonna come up here and play for a little bit." So during the school year, we try to keep it pretty buttoned down. I mean, that's why we're East Coasters, so mandatory fun night doesn't particularly work for us, at least for him, because that's just too late to be up on a school night.
'Cause it's 9 o'clock when we start already, so
Right.
on Eastern.
Exactly. Yeah. So 11 p.m. Eastern. That's too late for him during the school year. So you should see him more during the summer. I get it. I love the game. But they also need to see the sun and be out and be active and do all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely a challenge and a balancing act to try to limit it. But it's during the school week, I think we probably settled into you can play, half hour, 45 minutes, maybe an hour of electronics, whatever it is. So that's, you want to do SWTOR, you want to do Halo, you want to do whatever it is, you got your downtime, but then it's school, chores, et cetera, et cetera. Weekend, a little more flexible. But that's, again, it's a constant challenge.
A half hour. I mean, I get a glass of water, I log in, I say hi to people, and half an hour is already gone.
Yeah, that's not a ton. It's not a ton of time. And then we get to the question: did patching count for my again? Does that count against my time? Like, okay, no, the patching doesn't count. So
if you're sitting there staring at it, then yes, it does.
What if I'm just waiting for a cue to pop? Does that count?
Oh my gosh.
We've had to develop. It's like the Fair Labor Standards Act. There's all kinds of regulations about what counts, what does not count, which is sometimes led my wife to it's permaban. You're done. We're gonna make this really simple. There's nothing. Monday through Friday.
Then do you have to go to arbitration?
Yes, which comes to me. I'm the arbitrator. But it's definitely trying to find the right balance.
Yeah, that's excellent. I did get worried when my son, he's in high school, and introduced him to the game, and I was actually worried introducing him to the game while he, was doing all of the hardcore school stuff that he was, AP classes and all that kind of thing, because he was a brilliant student, and I knew what an MMO could do, because what it had done to me, the kinds of things it had done to me in the past. I tend to go down a rabbit hole from time to time with various games, and I didn't want that to happen. So I talked to him about it, and tried to impress upon him that, hey, all that kind of stuff comes first. And he's a really intelligent kid, and it turned out fine. But it was a worry for me for a while, even introducing it to him at all. And for a little while, he was playing a ton, and there was probably just a couple times, not that I couldn't have made him stop or made him play less, but just a little, a couple points where I almost regretted introducing it to him. I loved playing with him, and that's a huge, awesome, fun thing that we could do. Just one of many things that we do. We do, some sports stuff. We run together and that kind of thing too. But with him just playing a ton and sort of not doing some of the other things that he was doing, it was a concern. Now he's certainly then was he balanced on his own, so I didn't have to go further. But I'd certainly want parents to keep an eye out for that, of going too far down a rabbit hole and spending all the time in any sort of game. It's not great, because there's a lot of other cool stuff out there to be doing as well, online, offline, in the real world, and that kind of thing, that you got to make sure you balance.
You bring up something that I hadn't really thought about until just now, which is if you're deciding whether or not to bring one of your kids into the game, it's not only how they interact with people and how you keep them protected in every situation, but it modifies how you play the game too, in terms of how much time you have to do your own thing, because you will have to pay attention to that child and their gameplay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, you're interrupting Daddy's grinding time.
I wanted to PvP, and now I have to be a dad.
You're an albatross around my neck, kid. Kick
that
out
and the reverse, because my wife and daughter are not gamers, and so I had to kind of monitor, if they're at the dinner table, and the boys were all totally psyched about,
Yeah.
the op and the level, thing, and the new saber and the this, and we might have been speaking just gibberish as far as my wife is concerned. So I've had to. It's actually been funny watching her at least be able to throw some of the terms around, and I'd be like, "Hey, get Will to take out the trash." Or I'm sorry, you guys could delete that. Sorry, I just goofed that up. Get Mal to take out the trash, and she's like, "Oh, he's in a flashpoint." I'm like, "Okay."
All right. Yeah, there was a few times that with other family members trying to make sure it doesn't seem like the kids are playing games overly too much, that you get in a other family situation with anybody, and they're just chatting it up, and they're talking about they play the game, and then when they're not playing the game, they're talking about the game, and then like, you just but calm it down. Let's not talk about the game so much, because we don't play all the time, right? So I was trying to moderate. Oh no, let's talk about all of the hard work on studying that we do on a constant basis.
Yeah, Dad, in a minute. All right, well, let's see. Is there any particular point that either of you would like to make that we haven't really touched on?
Sort of wrap it up,
because we're gonna wind it up here.
Final fun story. Yeah. So what's your favorite thing to do with your kids there, Don?
We used to back when my older son played a little bit more. We would, and of course, Mal was the one who initiated this. Not that we were. So we play. It's almost like a hide and seek manhunter type. Back when you could flag for PvP. So we'd be on. Probably the best one was we were on McCab. My older boy and I were playing together. Mal switched factions and started attacking us, and so it just turned into this 45-minute planet-wide brawl. Where I ended up putting a bounty on his head with anybody in Gen Chat. Like, anybody could find, Mal, I'll pay you $50K. Tell him. So, and then the epic ending, which I give him, even the older brother will give credit for this. So we cornered him, and he set us up. It was like, McCab has those maces, right, with the ledges. So he was on the. I'm thinking, we're all smart because we got him cornered, and so we rush him, and I knockback, do the knockback, blow him off the edge of the cliff. Well, he had a sage, so he had the phase walk, which he'd planted behind us. So in the air, he clicks the port. So now he's behind us, and he knocks us back off, and we both die.
Really?
I was like, well played.
Pro
That was
move.
Very
Well played,
very well
Mal,
engineered.
well played.
Very well engineered. Even
You-
even older brother had to give up some respect. for that.
You
Nice.
fell into his trap.
Yeah, but we've had
It's a
numerous
trap.
planet ranging bounty hunter episodes, just the three of us, which has been fun.
Wow, that is a very cool idea. That sounds fun. I've had some pretty epic and hilarious dueling with both my kids. Again, with my son, Min-Max, really good at any class he played, especially when he's playing like the operative or scoundrel.
His operative, yeah.
Man, he could take me apart. Even when I was doing really good in PvP, the operatives still win the 1v1 tournaments. So being able to stealth and step behind him and stab me in the back, and he would just rip me apart. But he taught me a lot about PvP doing that, so that was fun. And then my daughter, I did remember, now that you mention it, we would duel, and it would just be hilarious. Because she like didn't really, she'd use abilities that just like looked the most awesome for rather than we're the most deadly. So she'd be like, wait, hold still.
Right there.
She'd like do a thing, and she's like, oh, that was awesome. So that was dueling with her, which was hilarious. So yeah, it's certainly a blast. So I think I recommend it to any parent. You get that opportunity that you can have a lot of fun. It is a sort of a fun thing, and you can have but certainly go at it from the perspective of, let's do it together. Let's take some time and just goof off and have fun with it. And I think that's when you'll have the most fun. All right. I think with that, our EPC 147 droid here is ready to head out. And stupid Crusher jokes that still
I
crack
was
me
going
up.
to say, do you have another dad joke for
I
him?
don't have one off the top of my head. I will think of more. But thanks to all of you for joining us on newoverlords.com, iTunes, YouTube, or live on Twitch at this time in the future, whenever you're hearing this. We will stream again next Tuesday night on twitch.tv/newoverlords around 10:30 p.m. Central. Please follow us on Twitter at MaxTheGray and at AIESEMA, and you can find Thon in AIE on Jedi Covenant in our guild. And we would certainly love to have you, so jump in on Jedi Covenant and ask us for an AIE guild invite, and we'll get you taken care of. And with that, we will talk to you soon.
Later, everyone.